Good morning, and welcome to this morning's very special commemorative service for the 125th anniversary of the founding of the BCA, together with the 850th anniversary of Shinran Shonin's birth and the 800th anniversary of the founding of our Jodo Shinshu tradition. My name is Michael Endo, and I am the executive assistant to the Bishop of BCA, Reverend Marvin Harada, and I'm honored to serve as your MC chairman this morning. Just as a reminder, for those of you who are joining us by the YouTube live stream, please note that a PDF version of today's program is available next to the YouTube link for today's service on the BCA website. And so at this time, we would like to begin this morning's service with Kenka, floral offering by the 8 districts of the BCA. The Bay District by Mr. Keiju Terada, and Central California District, Norman Otani. Representing the Coast District, Tom Yamashita, and the Eastern District, Brian Nagata. For the Mountain States District, Glenn Inanaga, in the Northern California District, Peggy Okabayashi. And representing the Northwest District, Tyler Moriguchi, and Southern District, Nadine Kakimoto. We will now have the Engi, the procession of the ministers into the Hondo, with the accompaniment of gagaku music.
Over 125 years ago, the country of Japan was bursting forth from long years of self-isolation. It would be at the early part of the 19th century that the Tokugawa regime began to realize that the technological advances of the West would not only make it difficult but foolish for Japan to continue a policy of isolation. And as history tells us, Japan did open up to the advancements of the West. Fast forward to 1897, it was in that year that a devout immigrant Buddhist by the name of Nisaburo Hirano, frustrated by the lack of Buddhist temples and spiritual guidance in America, made a trip to Japan and visited the Honganji in Kyoto. It would be during that visit that Mr. Hirano would make a very special connection with influential ministers and leaders at our mother temple, Honganji. His desire and request, along with many others in the United States, to see Jodo Shinshu Buddhism brought to the mainland US would not go unheard by the officials at Honganji. Then Gomonshu Myonyo Shonin, Otani Kosong, would also hear this call. And in 1899, Reverends Shue Sonoda and Kakuryo Nishijima would be dispatched to America and would arrive in San Francisco on September 1st, 1899. Thus was the start of our BCA organization. Today, we, the members of the BCA, celebrate 125 years of living a life guided by Shindan Shonin's teachings. Today's service is also special in that we celebrate the 850th anniversary of the birth of Shindan Shonin and the 800th anniversary of the founding of our Jodo Shinshu tradition. Today's service will incorporate a number of familiar and maybe not so familiar liturgical offerings and rituals. One of the first you have experienced today is something I'm sure you have heard before. That is the gagaku, or the traditional court music of Japan, which accompanied the procession of the ministers into the Hondo. During today's service, you will hear Zensho Kada. This is similar to the Sambujo, or 3 respectful callings, which we often recite during some of our services. The Zensho Kada is also a respectful calling or invitation for Amida Buddha to enter this dojo, accompanied by the Bodhisattva's Kannon,
and Seishi, with innumerable others who come to this gathering riding on lotus blossoms. It will be during this recitation of the Zensho Kada that our officiant, Bishop Harada, will make his way to the special seat in front of Amida Buddha. As he makes his way to the special seat, he will oshoko or offer incense in front of the altar of Shindan Shoni. Once Bishop Harada reaches the front of Amida Buddha, he will perform a ceremony known as Toraiban, ascending the dais. This ceremony is where the chief officiant comes before Amida Buddha and takes his position on the ceremonial dais chair to conduct the service. The special actions in the bowing or hai ceremony is considered to be the highest form of respect in our Jodo Shinshu Buddhist ritual tradition. Following Toraiban, Bishop Harada will present the Hyobyakumon, or the aspiration, at which time he will announce the purpose and meaning of today's service. This will be followed by the chanting of the Shoshinge to the melody of Junirai, and finally, the Tannenbutsu and echo. The rituals and ceremonies portions of the service will conclude with the Goraiban, or the descending from the dais, where Bishop Harada will perform a similar ceremony and ritual to Toraiban in order to return to his seat in the Onaijin. And so at this time, we will now begin the service with Kansho, or the ringing of the temple bell, and the entrance of the ministers into the altar.
Today, the members of the Buddhist Churches of America gather to observe our 125th anniversary and to observe the 850th anniversary of Shinran Shoning's birth and the 800th anniversary of the establishment of the Jodo Shinshu teachings. With deepest reverence, we express our gratitude to our founding ministers and members of the BCA for all that they have done throughout our 125-year history. With deep reverence, we express our gratitude to Shinran Shonin for propagating the teachings which enable Jodo Shinshu to be shared throughout the world. May we come to receive the liberating light of the Dharma, the light of Namu Amida Butsu in our hearts and minds. And may we live with the spirit of Shinran Shonin's words, may the Buddha Dharma spread, and may the world be at peace. Give
Next, we will have the Gatha Nembutsu. We ask that the congregation please join in the singing of the Gatha Nembutsu, and you may remain seated during the Gatha. Next, we'll have two very special musical videos. The first is Storms and Peace, followed by the Gatha Nembutsu again, this time by the group Otonoa. Please enjoy the videos.
In the swirling joy of being alive.
Thank you very much. Next, we have yet another video that we'd like to share with you. Very special video presentation of the churches, the temples, and the sanghas of the BCA. Thank you very much. Wasn't that wonderful? You got to visit all 60 BCA temples and 5 sanghas in 10 minutes. Thank you very much. Next, we'll have the Daihyo Shoko, incense offering by the representatives of the affiliated organizations of the BCA. First, we have, representing the Federation of Dharma School Teachers League, Darlene Bagshaw. Representing the Federation of Buddhist Women's Association, Janice Doi. For Cal Yaba, David Chin. For the Institute of Buddhist Studies, Dr. Scott Mitchell. The BCA Endowment Foundation, Dr. Kent Matsuda. Representing Ichijukai, the BCA Retirees and Spouses Organization, Reverend Shinyu Miyaji. For the BCA Ministers Association, Reverend Henry Adams. And representing the Buddhist Churches of America, Mr. Stephen Terusaki. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. If you could now all please join me in the reading of our pledge, which appears on page 21 in your program. Our pledge. Breaking out of my shell, I will share a warm smile and speak gentle words, just like the kind Buddha. Not becoming lost in my greed, anger, and ignorance, I shall think and act with an open mind, just like the calm and peaceful Buddha. Not putting myself first, I will share in the joy and sadness of others, just like the compassionate Buddha. Realizing the gift of life I have received, I shall strive to live each day to its fullest, like the Buddha who tirelessly works to liberate all. 私たちの誓い。一つ、自分の殻に閉じこもることなく、穏やかな顔と優しい言葉を大切にします。微笑み語りかける仏様のように。一つ、むさぼり、怒り、愚かさに流されず、 しなやかな心と振る舞いを心がけます。心安らかな仏様のように。一つ、自分だけを大事にすることなく、人と喜びや悲しみを分かち合います。慈悲に満ちた仏様のように。一つ、生かされていることに気づき、日々に精一杯努めます。人々の救いに尽くす仏様のように。Thank you very much. Next, we'll have some words of welcome. First, I would like to share the greetings we have received from our Monshu, Kojun Otani. The message also does appear in your program. Congratulations on the observance of the Buddhist Churches of America's joint celebration marking its 125th anniversary, Shinran Shonin's 850th birthday, and the 800th anniversary of the founding of the Jodo Shinshu teaching. Shinran Shonin was born in 1173, and through his main writing, Ken Jodo Shinjitsu Kyogyo Sho Monrui, the true teaching, practice, and realization of the Pure Land Way, also known as Kyogyo Shinsho, which is believed to have been completed in 1224, he systematically clarified the Jodo Shinshu teaching. Since then, the Jodo Shinshu teaching has been transmitted to us today, overcoming obstacles, and has been shared by people not only in Japan, but around the world. This is because regardless of time and place, the teaching always serves as a spiritual foundation and enables people to move forward in their lives. The founder of Buddhism, Shakyamuni Buddha, discovered the universal truth, such as the principle of original dependency as well as the theory of impermanence. However, we ordinary beings are not able to accept the truth as it is because we see things only through our self-centered and biased viewpoints. As a result, we suffer and fight each other when things do not go as we wish. Shakyamuni Buddha clarified that our own ignorance, in other words, our own human desires or a feeling of obstinate attachment to something is the very cause of our sufferings. Receiving this basic Buddhist teaching, Shinran Shonin taught us that for the sake of such foolish beings like us, Amida Tathagata is always working as the Nembutsu, or recitation of the name, that is nothing but Amida's calling voice. Those who have fully recognized the benevolent working of Amida Tathagata cannot help but to lament and feel regret for their own bonno, or persistent human desires, and it is natural that they feel ashamed of and try to minimize them. Such people would never indulge themselves in their egoistic cravings. Even though we have not been able to recognize our own selfishness, the encounter with Amida's working enables us to become aware of our true self, and through that recognition, we are naturally guided to make efforts to minimize such selfishness, and consequently, we are enabled to change our way of living. Keeping this in mind, let us strive to live each day with a feeling of gratitude for Amida's great wisdom and compassion that always embraces us as we are. September 1st, 2024, Otani Kojun, Monshu, Jodo Shinshu, Honganjiha. Namanda butsu, namanda, namanda butsu, namanda butsu, namanda. Next, I'd like to call on our bishop, Reverend Marvin Harada, to offer words of greetings.
May I extend a warm greetings to all of our ministers, lay leaders, and members who are here with us in our historic Buddhist Church of San Francisco, and to all who join us throughout the BCA, whether you have gathered at your local temple or you are joining us online from your home. Thank you for taking the time to join us for this historic gathering. Today, we stand on the shoulders of our predecessors for the past 125 years, the countless ministers, lay leaders, and members who founded our Buddhist churches of America, who built and grew our local churches, temples, and sanghas, and who have carried us to this point in time. Today we stand on the shoulders of Shinran Shonin, whose life and teachings of encountering immeasurable light and immeasurable life through the Nembutsu make the Dharma accessible for anyone of any background, of any ethnicity, of any gender or sexual orientation. Today, we stand on the shoulders of great Buddhist masters, teachers, and lay followers who transmitted the Dharma literally on their backs, carrying the sutras and Buddhist texts from ancient India to China, to Korea, to Japan, and now to us here in the West. Today, we stand on the shoulders of Shakyamuni Buddha and his disciples and followers of his time, who began to turn the wheel of the Dharma over 2,500 years ago. We stand on the shoulders of giants, of untold sacrifice, dedication, and deep faith. As we celebrate and honor our past, our 125 years of the BCA, the 800 years since the founding of Jodo Shinshu, and the 850 years since the birth of Shinran Shonin, may we challenge ourselves as we look to the future of our BCA, as we look to the future of our churches, temples, and sanghas, as we look to the future of Shin Buddhism in the West. Now, it is our turn to be the shoulders for the future. We must do our part to listen to the Dharma with our whole being, to receive the Dharma in our hearts and minds, and to transmit the Dharma until our bones are crushed, just as our predecessors and Shinran Shonin have done for the Dharma to reach all of us. We cannot shy away from our task or shirk our sense of responsibility. We cannot expect others to bear the weight on their shoulders. It must be our task, our challenge, to do our part in this generation to be the shoulders for the future. Thank you. Namandavats, 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 namandavats.
Thank you, Bishop. Next, I'd like to call on our BCA President, Mr. Stephen Terusaki, for greetings.
Following Bishop Harada's welcome, I too welcome everyone to today's service, this monumental historic occasion for the BCA, especially those who are attending on the live stream virtual and joining us from your homes, your temples, and from all around the world. Today's service couldn't have happened without the coordination and leadership of the 125th Anniversary Committee. I'd like to give my thanks to the co-chairs, Mrs. Terry Omori from the Vista Buddhist Temple, and to Mrs. Darlene Bagshaw from the Stockton Buddhist Church, together with Bishop Harada and the Babe ministers and all the BCA ministers who participated in today's service. Thank you so much. It was really a momentous effort, and there are many more who were part of this service, and we'll recognize them later. As I stand here today on September 1st, 2024, I look around the BCA and see the many great opportunities that Jodo Shinshu can make in America. This America that's currently is divided, mistrusting, and in despair. Amita's great wisdom and compassion is here for everyone. We just need to make sure we are doing our part to share this hidden jewel. In the upcoming September edition of the Wheel of Dharma, Reverend Dr. Jean-Paul Contreras de Guzman, a minister's assistant at the San Fernando Valley Honganji Buddhist Temple, and a lecturer at UCLA, writes, and I quote, "I taught an Asian American history class in which the themes of ancestors, remembrances, and the significance of artists as the writers of history were prominent. How fortunate I was that the class coincided with the Bombu Stories tour across the Obon celebrations to debut Lantern Song, composed and choreographed for the 125th anniversary by Cindy Shiroyama, choreographed by Cindy Shiroyama and Miko Shudo. And they led my students in dancing the Lantern Song. It prompted my students to reflect on their ancestors in a different way. Learning about the history and spirituality that informed Lantern Song left students understanding that Buddhism in America is not simply an ancient set of religious practices or an intellectual mind game or exotic superstitions, even a passing trend, but a living, breathing system of awakening to one's true self and true reality itself. As Reverend Dr. David de Guzman continues, I'm always humbled by moments to witness the truth of interdependence. Moreover, how thankful I am that my karmic path brought me to Jodo Shinshu and encounter good Dharma friends, activists, artists, musicians, and more, who as conduits of the great compassion have guided me. I sincerely hope that I succeeded in giving them, my students, a fuller, nuanced, and more authentic understanding of Buddhism, of Jodo Shinshu in America. Reverend Dr. de Guzman is carrying the torch of spreading the Dharma to those who haven't heard the power of the Nembutsu teachings. I love the statement that he writes, Buddhism in America is not simply an ancient set of religious practices or an intellectual mind game, or exotic superstitions, or even a passing trend, but rather a living, breathing system of awakening to one's true self and true reality itself. As we look to the future, I find our purpose captured in the updated mission statement that we at the BCA leadership are putting forth. This mission statement, or our why, is to share the Shin Buddhist teachings of wisdom and compassion for everyone to have a meaningful and fulfilled life of gratitude. So again, to share the Shin Buddhist teachings of wisdom and compassion for everyone to have a meaningful and fulfilled life of gratitude. In this mission statement, that we will move BCA to fulfill our future vision, where we have made Shin Buddhism to be a flourishing tradition that shares the Nembutsu teachings through an engaging ministry, and where inclusive communities and sanghas cultivate peace, understanding, and compassion for everyone. As I look to our future and to our next 25 years and our next milestone celebration of 150, I'm hopeful and optimistic for a BCA that continues to evolve, respond to challenges, and create value and meaning for each and every one who encounters the Dharma. For as our 2024 BCA theme and our 125th anniversary theme states, the right time is now. So let us do our part in making it happen. Thank you. Namo Amida Butsu.
Thank you, Steve. I'm optimistic that we'll be here in 25 years to celebrate the 150th anniversary of the BCA, but thank you very much. Next, I'd like to ask all of you to please join in the singing of Ondok-san 2. And again, you may remain seated.
Yo
Thank you very much. We now have a very special video message from a very special individual, from Reverend Yoshiki Sonoda. As I noted in my opening remarks this morning, one of the very first ministers to be dispatched to the United States by the Honganji in Japan in 1899 was Reverend Shue Sonoda. This morning, we are very fortunate and honored to have received a special video greetings from Reverend Yoshiki Sonoda, the great-grandson of Reverend Shue Sonoda, the first minister of the BCA. Reverend Sonoda, who resides in Wakayama, Japan, graciously sent us this congratulatory video message, which is in Japanese, but with English subtitles. So please enjoy.
それではスタートします。BCA の皆様、はじめまして。この度は BCA 開教125周年をお迎えになりましたことを心よりお祝い申し上げます。125年の長きにわたって多くの方々のご尽力により、浄土真宗の御教えがアメリカの地で受け入れられ、相続されたことは本当に尊くありがたいこととあります。私は園田義樹と申します。今から125年前に本願寺よりサンフランシスコへ派遣された初代の開教師である園田修へのひ孫の一人であります。私は現在、妙教寺というお寺の住職を務めています。園田修へはこの妙教寺の第12代目の住職、私は第15代目の住職になります。先日、知人を通して開教総長であるマービン原田さんから BCA 開教125周年にあたってメッセージを送ってほしいとの依頼を頂戴いたしました。今日は少しだけお時間を頂戴して曽祖父である園田修へについてお話をさせていただきます。私が住職を務める妙教寺は和歌山市という地方の都市であります。和歌山市は大阪市の南約37マイルのところにあります。この和歌山市がある和歌山県は昔は紀伊とか紀州とかそういうふうに呼ばれておりました。この和歌山県は広島、山口、熊本、福岡などと同じく、海外へ、たくさんの人を送り出した移民を輩出した県であります。今、この動画をご覧の方々の中にもひょっとしたら和歌山にゆかりのある方、ご先祖が和歌山の方いらっしゃるかもしれません。また和歌山という土地は、ご本山である本願寺と、浅からぬご縁があるそういう土地でもあります。今から450年前、その頃の日本は戦国時代でありましたが、本願寺は現在の大阪市にありました。大阪城が建っているその場所に本願寺がございました。で当時、本願寺は、天下統一を目指す織田信長と、10年以上にわたって戦争状態にありました。とても長い期間、戦いが続いておったわけですね。そこで当時の天皇が仲裁しまして、本願寺と信長は和睦いたしました。第11代の御門主である賢如上人は、その和睦に従って大阪を退去し、当地和歌山に本願寺を移されました。1580年のことでございました。そして3年3ヶ月という短い時間ではありますけれども、ここ和歌山に本願寺が敷を構えたわけであります。これは当地の御門徒にとっては、とても大きな誇りでありました。しかしながら和歌山は、京都や大阪から離れていて何かと不便でありました。そういったことから本願寺は1583年に大阪の貝塚に移り、その後天満を経て1591年には現在地である京都へと時期を移します。またこの間、織田信長が亡くなり、多くの戦乱がありましたが、徳川家康が天下を掌握するようになりました。長い戦国時代が 終わりを迎えたのです。1603年には家康は将軍となり、江戸に幕府を開きました。江戸、現在の東京ですね。現在の東京に幕府を開きました。1619年には和歌山に徳川家康の10番目の息子である徳川頼信が送り込まれました。そして紀伊徳川家が代々藩主を務める紀州藩が成立することになりました。その後和歌山市は紀州藩の城下町として大いに発展を遂げました。徳川幕府が実権を握った時代を江戸時代と呼びますが、約270年続きました。この江戸時代の終わり、明治維新の5年前である1863年7月27日に園田秀栄は生まれました。秀栄の生まれ故郷は和歌山と大阪の境にある小島という小さな漁村でした。この小さな漁村にある京円寺の住職、浅井秀太の長男として秀栄はこのように生を受けたのでした。秀栄は、子供の頃から非常に利発な人だったようです。14歳の時には地元の小学校で教鞭を取りました。1880年には18歳で本願寺の大教校、現在の龍谷大学ですね、入学いたします。3年間仏教学などを学びました。その後、ご本山から東京留学を命じられます。1884年に東京大学予備門に入学。同級生には夏目漱石、正岡子規など、そういった方々がいらっしゃったそうです。1887年、25歳の時に、和歌山の当地、このお寺、妙教寺住職の園田光順の養子となり、光順の長女である佳代と結婚します。その後、当時日本に一つしかなかった大学である帝国大学文化大学に入学いたします。哲学を専攻しました。1892年、帝国大学文化大学を卒業、30歳の若さで本願寺の文学寮の教授に就任、仏教学などを講じました。そして、1899年、37歳の時に、ご本山から在米日本人への布教のため、西島閣僚氏と共にサンフランシスコ駐在を命じられます。秀栄は1899年8月16日、横浜港から日本丸に乗船し、途中ハワイを経由して9月の1日にサンフランシスコに到着しました。9月24日には本願寺の出張所を開設し、布教活動を開始。12月17日にはサクラメントに支部を開設。翌1900年1月にはフレスノにも支部を設立。日本人だけではなくアメリカ人にも浄土真宗の見教えを英語で伝えたと言われております。秀栄のアメリカでの伝道生活はわずか1年余りでありましたが、非常に充実した時間を過ごしたようであります。忙しくも充実した時間を過ごしておった秀栄でありましたが、突然にご本山からベルリン駐在を命じられ、1900年12月17日、サンフランシスコを立つことになりました。翌1901年1月10日にはベルリンに到着。その後、1902年にはインド仏教遺跡調査へということでインドへ向かいます。1903年、日本に帰国しました。その後はですね、仏教大学、現在の龍谷大学の学長などを歴任し、1922年60歳で往生を遂げました。秀栄のアメリカでの布教活動は長くありませんでした。随分と忙しくは過ごしていたようであります。仏教青年会会報などによると、日本人対象の法話、アメリカ人対象の英語での説教など、月に15回も法話や講義などがあったそうです。その他、地方への出張なども重なり、大変な苦労があったようです。今日の BCA の発展は、もちろん、現地の方々、お念仏を喜ぶ方々のご苦労やご尽力の賜物であります。が、私の曽祖父が今日の BCA の基礎の立ち上げに、ささやかながらも お手伝いができたことは、ひ孫の一人として大きな喜びであります。最後に、周営の子供たちについてお話しさせていただきます。周営には男2人、女3人、合計5人の子供がいました。子供たちはすべてお寺に入りました。孫は14人、ひ孫は正確な数はわかりませんが、25人以上はいたと思います。ヤシャゴは20人以上いると思います。ヤシャゴの子供の来孫も、少なくとも2人はいるようです。ひ孫や、ヤシャゴの中にはおそらく周囲の名前も知らないという人もいるでしょう。そういった意味で今回、125年前の曽祖父の実績を忘れることなくスピーチの機会を与えてくださったマービン・原田さんはじめ BCA 関係の方々には心より厚くお礼申し上げます。最後に BCA の今後ますますの発展とアメリカの地で阿弥陀如来のお慈悲喜ぶ念仏の声がますます盛んになることを念じつつ、最後、お礼の言葉とさせていただきます。お祝いの言葉とさせていただきます。本日はどうもありがとうございました。ナマンダブナマンダブナマンダブナマンダブナマンダブナマンダブ。
I'm sure many of you have seen the famous photo of the two missionaries that arrived in San Francisco in 1899. It's been printed in the Wheel of Dharma. It's been on plates as souvenirs for BCA. But to be able to hear Shue Sonoda's wish through his great-grandson to today's service, I think it's really truly an honor, privilege for all of us to have heard his words and for us to continue this his wish to see that the Nembutsu flourishes here in the United States. So thank you, Sonoda Sensei, for your message. I now have the distinct honor and pleasure of introducing our guest speaker to offer this morning's Dharma message. Reverend Dr. David Matsumoto joined the BCA ministry in 1989. Sensei's first assignment as a minister was resident minister of the Buddhist Church of Stockton. In 1995, he was then appointed to the faculty of the Institute of Buddhist Studies, where he served as the director of the Center for Contemporary Buddhist Studies. Reverend Dr. Matsumoto then went on to serve as the provost and vice president of academic affairs, the George and Sakae Aratani professor of Shin Buddhist Studies, and the director of the Ministerial Education and Kyoshi Certificate Program. Reverend Dr. Matsumoto went on to become president of the IBS, and amidst all of this important work, Matsumoto Sensei also went on to receive his PhD from Ryukoku University. And in addition to all of this, he also served as the resident minister of the Berkeley Buddhist Temple during this period, for a period of time. I know Sensei didn't want me to say this, but he is definitely a Superman of Supermans among our BCA ministers, to say the least. Sadly, Sensei retired on June 30th, 2024, although I'm sure you're happy that you retired and are able to relax now, concluding an illustrious and dedicated career of 35 years as a minister and educator for not only us here in the BCA, but for Buddhists worldwide. And so it is my honor and privilege to present to you Reverend Dr. David Matsumoto.
Thank you very much. May I ask everyone to please join me in Gassho as we hear the words of Shinran Chonin found in the postscript of his magnum opus, True Teaching, Practice, and Realization of the Pure Land Way. How joyous I am, my heart and mind being rooted in the Buddha ground of the universal vow, and my thoughts and feelings flowing within the Dharma ocean, which is beyond comprehension. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namanda, Namanda, Namanda. When people from Japan began migrating to Hawaii and the United States during the late 19th century in search of work and a better life, they brought along more than their dreams and willingness to endure the vagaries of a strange land. Included in their baggage of cultural norms was a worldview that led them from the inevitable loneliness and frustration, which is an immigrant's fate, back to a world of religious embrace, a world both spiritual and social in nature, capable of giving reassurance and empowerment to the dispossessed. Most of the Japanese workers at that time were Buddhists, and the tradition that they re-encountered in the New World was Jodo Shinshu. Today we are celebrating together the 125th anniversary of the founding of the Buddhist Churches of America, the 850th anniversary of the birth of Shinran Shonin, and the 800th anniversary of the establishment of Jodo Shinshu. Shinran Shonin was born on May 21st, 1173, and passed away on January 16th, 1263. He was the founder of the Jodo Shinshu tradition of Buddhism, and today we celebrate the 800th anniversary of his birth. In 1224, Shinran Shonin composed his magnum opus, a collection of passages revealing the true teaching, practice, and realization of the Pure Land Way. Ken Jodo Shinjitsu Kyogyo Sho Monrui. When he was 52 years old and living in the Kanto area of Japan. Throughout his life and writings, Shinran Shonin taught the true essence of the Pure Land Way, Jodo Shinshu. His masterwork sets out a path of genuine significance, which manifests the primal vow of Amida Buddha, manifests in this life the true significance of the Dharma. And the purport of the primal vow is to carry all beings who entrust completely to birth in the Pure Land. Today, we reflect upon the significance of the 125-year history of the BCA. And as we do, we come to understand that the working of the primal vow of Amida Buddha manifests in this life. It is active and working. It functions and operates within history, here and now. The vow manifests in the teachings of Shinran Shonin and the Pure Land Masters, the religious lives, hearts, and minds of Nembutsu followers everywhere, the spiritual awakening that is Shinjin to the reality of the working of the vow, and in the temples, the sanghas, the institutions that have carried on the true essence of the Pure Land Way. In the late 19th century, the majority of Japanese people who migrated to America were from areas that were Jodo Shinshu strongholds. Thus, it's not surprising that most of the first East Say in America were Shin Buddhists. Hawaii first received Japanese laborers in 1868. The influx of Japanese nationals to the mainland began in the 1870s and increased steadily thereafter. Almost all were single young men whose lives consisted of backbreaking work and a few hours of relaxation with friends. One of them, as mentioned by Reverend Endo, was Mr. Nisaburo Hirano. He knew that someone was needed to minister to their spiritual needs. As a result of his efforts, the abbot of the Honganji sent two priests, Reverend Edu Honda, and Kakunyo Nishijima, to America in 1898. They met with some 30 young people and helped to establish the Bukkyo Seinenkai, the Young Men's Buddhist Association. Soon thereafter, 83 members of the YMBA sent a petition to the Honganji requesting the establishment of a Buddhist center for missionary work in America. The words of their heartfelt request remain vibrant and alive today. They conclude, "In the 8 directions are non-Buddhist forces surrounding Japanese Buddhists, and we cannot be at ease. It is as if we were sitting on the point of a pin. No matter how we move, we will be pricked. Our burning desire to hear the teachings is about to explode from every pore in our body." Thereupon, this is the famous picture Reverend Endo is talking about. Thereupon, the Hompo Honganji dispatched 2 missionaries, Dr. Shue Sonoda and Reverend Kakuryo Nishijima, to America. They arrived in San Francisco on September 1st, 1899, and established the Honganji branch office there. This marked the official start of the Hokubei Bukkyodan, the North American Buddhist mission, which was to evolve into the Buddhist Churches of America. Reverend Sonoda and Nishijima also established other YMBA and Fujinkai branches in Sacramento, Fresno, and Vacaville. Soon, new temples were being built at a rapid rate in areas of the greatest Japanese concentration, including the Bay Area, Los Angeles, Fresno, Seattle, and Central California. By the early 1900s, the NABM headquarters office was officially moved to San Francisco. This new Jodo Shinshu movement in America faced many challenges, including the rise of virulent anti-Asian agitation on the West Coast, a series of anti-Asian laws that were part of its result, the forced removal of persons of Japanese ancestry from the West Coast in 1942 and their confinement in camps during the war, the formation of the Buddhist Churches of America in July 1944 and the dramatic and often traumatic changes that engendered, and the anxiety and insecurity brought on by the resettlement of internees and the reestablishment of their homes and temples after the war. Needless to say, BCA faced all of those challenges, and it has persevered. This forms a remarkable historical narrative filled with individual and communal stories of faith and courage, the audacity of hope, and lives of profound gratitude. Today, we are also commemorating the 850th anniversary of Shinran Shonin's birth and the 800th anniversary of the establishment of the Jodo Shinshu teaching. I would like to focus on one portion of Shinran Shonin's life as it relates to the postscript of his true teaching, practice, and realization. In the second month of 1207, when Shinran Shonin was 35 years old, the Jogen religious persecution took place. At the urging of the powerful Buddhist establishment, the imperial government banned Honen Shonin's teaching of the exclusive practice of the Nembutsu and the Pure Land School. 4 monks were executed, and Honen and 6 of his disciples were sent into exile. Shinran was one of them. He was sent to the province of Echigo in the northern frontier, now Niigata Prefecture, and given a layperson's name, Fuji Yoshizane. He was sent to live a life of hardship in an isolated country among unschooled hunters, fishers, and peasants. Exiled, defrocked, separated from his teacher Honen and his compatriots, the Pure Land movement crushed. He was all alone in a far-off region of Echigo. I have an image of Shinran Shonin in my mind. I imagine Shinran standing before the crashing waves and howling wind on the shores of the Sea of Japan. Perhaps the very ground upon which he stood was shaking, giving way beneath his feet. His entire life, his entire being was threatened with utter destruction. I can only imagine what was in his heart and mind, perhaps despair, perhaps resolve, perhaps thoughts and feelings not unlike those of the young Issei, strangers in a strange land, and giving voice to their deepest spiritual needs and concerns. And at the depth of his despair, in the midst of the most dire of circumstances, Shinran Shonin was able to hear a call, the calling voice of the Buddha, of immeasurable light and life, the primal vow of Amida voicing itself to him as Namo Amida Butsu. And his response was, "How joyous I am, my heart and mind being rooted in the Buddha ground of the universal vow, and my thoughts and feelings flowing within the Dharma ocean, which is beyond comprehension." Shinran Shonin was able to awaken to and stand upon the unshakable Buddha ground of the universal vow and experience his thoughts and feelings soaring and flowing within the inconceivable Dharma ocean. This was Shinran Shonin's awakening, the arising of Shinjin in his life, his heart, and his mind. This was his encounter with the working of the primal vow in his life within history. Shinran Shonin expounds the active power and working of Amida Buddha's primal vow with brilliant eloquence throughout his writings. I would like to now share with you my own understanding, my own rendering of the primal vow. It goes like this. It is the basic wish of life itself, wherein life wishes to become its true self and then give itself to others freely so that they might live. When the Honganji responded to the young Issei in America at the end of the 19th century, I can only imagine the gratitude and joy that must have exploded in their hearts, just as it had in Shinran Shonin's heart, nearly 7 centuries before. They experienced, they re-encountered the working of the primal vow. The basic wish of life called to them. It reached out to them, young immigrants from Japan, strangers in a strange land, who were faced with mountains of challenges and hardships, and brought them back to a world of religious embrace. This is the working of the universal vow of the Buddha of immeasurable light and life, manifesting in history. It was alive in Shinran Shonin's life, his heart and mind. It is alive and remains alive within his writings. It is alive within the Honganji and the BCA and their many temples, alive within the lives and hearts and minds of Myonyo Shonin, Reverend Sonoda and Nishijima, and all of the Kaikyoshi that have followed them. Alive within the lives, hearts, and minds of Nembutsu followers in the realms throughout time, across cultures, beyond words. It is a living heart, beating with significance, truth, and reality. Those young Issei pioneers and the new Jodo Shinshu movement in America took on many challenges and overcame those hardships with faith, hard work, and a deep sense of hope for the future. Their devotion and that of their children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and many others have opened up a world of spiritual embrace in America for over 125 years. As we reflect upon the 125-year history of the BCA, we cannot help but have a deep sense of gratitude for the people and events that have allowed it to thrive as a living Sangha. And we are also realize that we are recipients of the vow's working and find that we are able to move forward with courage, hope, and joy. We know that we are still facing many challenges today. On a global scale, the world is not at peace. Conflicts and cultural wars abound in nations, cities, and even within homes. Poverty, discrimination, and inequality remain realities in our world. And yet, the winds of change blow everywhere. Old structures crumble under the weight of time. New ideas and technologies offer promise of a better future, but sometimes at the cost of our shared and treasured heritage. This world is filled with many unsettling and troubling things. Life is filled with uncertainty. It is fragile, fleeting, and filled with challenges. That much is undeniably true. But it is how we respond to such uncertainty and problems that will define our lives. It will determine who we are. Our lives are not predetermined by gods, or fate, or karma. The conditions of our lives bring us face to face with challenges and then enable us to respond to them in our own way. As we hear the Nembutsu and receive the Buddha's basic wish of life, we realize that we have choices to make in life, and the choices we make will define who we are. We can run away from hardships or responsibility. We can live in denial or be paralyzed by fear, or we can face the challenges of life. As we awaken to the working of the primal vow in our lives and in this world, we will be able to face all of the many frightening things of life, and despite or even because of them, choose to live with awareness, appreciation, and authenticity. The primal vow of Amida Buddha is life's deepest and most profound wish, the wish that we may all be able to live our true lives. The Buddha Dharma gives us the encouragement to live with courage and joy and provides us with the guidance in making those choices. How joyous I am. My heart and mind being rooted in the Buddha ground of the universal vow, and my thoughts and feelings flowing within the Dharma ocean, which is beyond comprehension. The working of the primal vow flowed through the life, heart, and mind of Shinran Shonin. I imagine him shouting those words out in ancient Japan as he stood before a roaring sea, his life in exile filled with uncertainty and the very ground shaking beneath his feet. Facing his fears, he chose life. He was able to live his true life, for he was standing firmly on the Buddha ground of the universal vow. I am convinced that Jodo Shinshu Buddhists will face these and other new challenges in the same way, directly and positively. After all, we are true disciples of the Buddha and followers of the Nembutsu. With our history as a foundation and the teachings as our guide, we can ensure that BCA and our temples will be able to continue to operate as manifestations of the primal vow. We can support our ministers as they strive to impart the true essence of the Pure Land Way with all Nembutsu followers throughout the world, young and old. We can allow our young leaders the chance to develop new ways to keep our temples financially sustainable, even with an aging and shrinking membership. We will welcome into our doors people from all walks of life, all races and genders, all ethnic and religious backgrounds, all lifestyles, and all points of view. We will continue to be active members of the greater community, extending our hands to those who are in need of our help and support, especially those victimized by violence and discrimination and those banished to the margins of society. On the path of Jodo Shinshu, we will continue to focus on the Dharma, knowing that the Buddha's primal vow of wisdom and compassion can offer our world the possibility of real peace and freedom at long last. May I ask you once again to join me in Gassho as we hear the words of Shinran Shonin. Let's say them together. How joyous I am, my heart and mind being rooted in the Buddha ground of the universal vow, and my thoughts and feelings flowing within the Dharma ocean, which is beyond comprehension. Namo Amida Butsu, Namanda, 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 Namanda. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Reverend Dr. Matsumoto. How joyous we all are to have you share your wisdom and your words with us on this occasion when the right time is now for us to continue to listen to Shinran Shonin's teachings and his words through your tutelage and your knowledge. Thank you very much. I'd now like to call on our general chairs for today's wondrous and wonderful celebration, Terry Omori and Darlene Bagshaw.
So I'd like to start off with a greeting to all of you. Happy BCA Founding Day. Today is September 1st, and so it is most fitting to celebrate the 125th anniversary of our Buddhist Churches of America, as well as acknowledge the 850th anniversary of Shinran Shonin's birth and the 800th anniversary of the establishment of our Jodo Shinshu tradition. On behalf of the Buddhist Churches of America, Darlene and I would like to express deepest gratitude to you, to each and every one of you, whether you're here in person at the Buddhist Church of San Francisco, in their Hondo, or watching virtually from your own home, or live streaming at your own temple, watching together with Sangha. Thank you for being a part of this milestone celebration. It took many people for us to be able to gather and celebrate today's momentous occasion. It was an amazing team effort, and we would like to acknowledge the following for their part in making today's service possible. To Reverend Marvin Harada, our bishop and officiant of today's service, we are so grateful for your guidance as the planning committee's head advisor. Reverend Henry Adams, Gicho, BCA Ministers Association chairperson, and Reverend Harry Bridge, the immediate past chair, along with their Bay District Ministers Association colleagues, Reverends Dean Koyama, Kiyonobu Kuwahara, Takashi Miyaji, and Melissa Opal, led by Reverend Dennis Fujimoto, Kyokucho, chairperson. Thank you for developing, organizing, and assisting with today's special service program. To our service chairperson, Reverend Michael Endo, thank you also for creating the beautiful floral arrangements and serving as the planning committee's advisor along with Judy Kono. To all of our BCA ministers, we greatly appreciate your participation today. We also are so deeply indebted to all that you do to share Shinran Shonin's teachings. To Reverend Dr. David Matsumoto, thank you for being our guest speaker and for sharing BCA's rich history. We are also thankful for our volunteers who serve on BCA committees. For today's service, we want to especially thank the Archives and Historic Preservation Committee, chaired by Sandy Saeki, the Music Committee, chaired by Kemi Nakabayashi, with Misaye Abiko and Betty Fujimoto as liaisons to the 125th Anniversary Service Planning Committee, and to the Film and Video Ad Hoc Committee, chaired by Glenn Tao, who is also our official photographer today. These committees collaborated and provided much of the audio and video content for today's service. And to the BCA Executive Committee, led by Stephen Terusaki, thank you for your ongoing support and assistance. And now I turn it over to Darlene for a few more acknowledgments.
So good morning. We have so many people to be so grateful for. So all our BCA staff is absolutely amazing. But for this event, we'd like to extend additional thank yous to Gail Noguchi, Angela Bartolacchi, and Stephanie Fong for their additional efforts. The Gagaku musicians added so much to our service under the leadership of David Ushijima. Thank you to all our volunteers here at the Buddhist Church of San Francisco, many who are busy right now as we speak, led by President Arlene Kimata, to our production stage manager, Kevin Yoza, and to our AV coordinator, Richard Okiue. We encourage all of you to view, even if on tape delay, the absolutely wonderful collection of temple and organization videos collected and to commemorate our BCA 125th anniversary. Tremendous thank yous to Koichi Mizushima and Michiko Inanaga for their endeavors and enthusiasm in collection, production, and soon-to-be live-streamed telethon event. Last but never least, I would like to recognize Terry Omori, who began this venture years ago so we could all partake in this very special commemorative service. And we thank all of you again, both here in the Hondo and on YouTube, for your part in being here at today's event. Let's keep the Dharma strong in the BCA, and we will meet here again in 125 years. Okay, well, perhaps. Keep those shoulders strong, and we won't wait. We'll just wait 25 years to meet again. So thank you very much for all you do, and we really appreciate you being part of today's events.
Thank you, Terry and Darlene. I just have at this time a number of announcements I'd like to share with you. Number one, following this service celebration, we invite all of you to join the committee for bento in the temple gymnasium, which is where we at here, this way, downstairs. There'll be some people to guide you where it is. And also following this service, some of you, we'd like to have you remain before you head for bento. We'd like to take a number of group photos. So first, we will be taking one shot of the entire congregation from the Naijin this direction. So that's the first photo. We'd also like to have the BCA ministers all remain, BCA executive committee members, Ichijukai members, the affiliated organization representatives, the BCA district representatives, and the 125th Commemorative Service Committee members. Please remain in the Hondo so that we can get individual group photos of those groups, okay? And as Darlene mentioned, please don't forget to watch the BCA 125th celebration telethon, which was to begin at 11:30. It's now 12:15, but it will be online, and it will be hosted by Michiko Inanaga, Director of Development for the BCA Endowment Foundation, and Koichi Mizushima, the Program Assistant and Youth Coordinator for the Center for Buddhist Education. The telethon will feature BCA temples, ministers, and talented BCA members. Your support of this event will help to ensure the continued growth of the various programs and aspects of the BCA. And so in closing, I'd like to share with you that since the founding of the BCA 125 years ago, nearly 400 ministers have served the BCA, ministering to thousands of members. Innumerable heartwarming and inspiring stories can be related, as well as stories of tears and anguish, particularly during those early years of our organization's beginnings and through the era of worldwide conflicts, when our ministers, their families, and our members endured so many hardships. Today, we are able to enjoy and live our lives guided by Shinran Shonin's Onenbutsu teaching, which came to us 800 years ago because of the efforts of our predecessors to preserve and to see to it that we today are able to hear the light of Amida's wisdom and compassion. We owe to the countless number of hardworking ministers, lay leaders, members in our national district, and temple officials a tremendous debt of gratitude for the wonderful legacy that they have left for us, a legacy not only to be cherished, but to emulate and to continue. Through your participation in today's service and celebration, be it in person or online, you have become part of the legacy and history of our organization, BCA. And realizing that the right time is now, may today's service serve as a reminder and a source of encouragement for all of us to continue to live a life guided by the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, and Shinran Shonin's Nembutsu teaching. And in the words of Shinran Shonin, may peace prevail throughout the world, and may the Buddha Dharma spread. I too would also like to thank the members of the Bay District Ministers Association for your many, many months of organizing today's very special service. And a special thank you to the members of the Buddhist Church of San Francisco for your assistance, your cooperation in helping us to conduct this very, very special service in our Hondo of the BCA. Thank you very much. And again, thank you all of you for joining us today, both in person and online. And I ask you to please travel home safely following the celebration Obento lunch. So again, thank you all for your attendance. And again, before everyone leaves the Hondo, please hold on for one moment as we prepare to take a photograph of the entire congregation by our photographers. So can we close this portion with Gassho? Again, thank you very much. Namanda Butsu, Namanda, 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 Namanda. Thank you very much.